Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. This time of year is when people tend to slow down and say, I'll get to it next year. But if you really want to pull out as much value from this year as possible, we encourage you to use these last 3 months for all they can offer you. In today's episode, we're sharing a reset framework you can do this week to go into Q4 with a clearer mind and end the year feeling organized and accomplished.
I feel like Q4 gets the least amount of love because even though we're only in September, everyone is already looking ahead to the new year. But around this time last year, I actually listened to a Mel Robbins podcast episode where she was saying that September is the new January, basically saying that September and the fall in general is the best time to be productive. And she was talking about it from a psychological standpoint because our brains are literally hardwired to be productive starting in September. And the reason being is because that was our school schedule that we were on literally from the time that we were like 6 years old. Like growing up, we always started school in September. So it trained our brains to be like, okay, we took a little bit of a rest in the summer, but then the fall is when we really pick it back up. So I think a lot of people like start to look ahead to the new year and they're like, I'm just going to start with my goals in Q1. But Q4 can actually be the time to like really kick it into high gear and have this one like really high impact sprint so that you can start the new year as the best version of yourself.
I actually love Q4 because I feel like, Q4 has so many things I look forward to. The holidays, it's busier with work, but also I love Q4 because you get to sit here and be like, I spent the last 9 months of this year doing whatever I did. I learned so much, and now I get to apply everything that I learned in those 9 months to the last 3 and make these last 3 months so high impact. It's the same thing like when you start a new year, you're thinking, okay, wow, I just learned so much in 2025. Now I can implement it in 2026 and really make this the best year yet. And you think that every single time. And I think adopting that same mindset with the quarters is really powerful, being like, okay, what did I learn over the last 9 months? Now I'm going to implement that into this last quarter. And I also think too, the end of the year can end up being this like year-end rush kind of perspective. It's like, okay, I have to get all these things done by the end of the year, and this is so much going on, whatever. But I think reframing it to be more of a, how can I strategically finish off the year in the way that I want to? And I think that's what this episode is really about.
Wait, I love that so much. And it is crazy how everyone's brains just work so differently. Like you can think about Q4 in whatever way you want to think about Q4. Like you just said, you think about it as I want to apply everything that I learned last year. I feel like I always think about Q4 as how do I set myself up in Q4 to be the absolute best version of myself in Q1 for the purpose of whatever my goal is. So for example, I've talked about this on the podcast before. I set a goal in 2025 to make $1 million. That was like my stretch goal. And I absolutely am not going to hit that this year. Like definitely not. However, I'm not approaching Q4 as like, okay, Q4 is my last shot to make $1 million this year. Like I need to go into overdrive and like make as much money as possible to make $1 million by the end of 2025. It's not so much that, it's more so how do I make sure Q4 I'm really focused on myself, my business goals, so that by the time Q1 starts, I'm ready to like potentially hit that goal next year. So it's all about just like, what are your goals? What goals did you set for yourself in 2025? And are you trying to finish up those goals, or are you starting to take action today on the goals that you want to set for yourself for 2026?
And I think that goes like really well into the first kind of part of this. Okay, we've done these episodes also every quarter of this year, and I believe every quarter of last year. So if you want to go back, we kind of share like slightly different things in each one. So you can go back and listen to those as well. But in every one, I think we pretty much make the same first recommendation, and that's doing a physical reset, because I think you need to get back to base. I think especially for me in the summer, I feel like things get chaotic, especially, here in Florida. You're going to the beach all the time, like you're always outside and doing things. But I remember back home, I just felt like my apartment would get messier by the end of the summer because you're going to the beach more often, you're doing all of the things. And also life for me in the summer was always a lot more chaotic and busy. So I would sit there and be like, okay, when was the last time I cleaned out this drawer? Or when was the last time I, yeah, just got to some of these lingering tasks that I have, and I like to do those before going into the season. So I think if you can find a day, just one day to crank all of this out, I think it will do you so well. Whether that's like, okay, I'm going to take a Monday or a Friday or something off of work, or if that's, I'm going to take a half day on a Friday or on one Saturday, I'm saying no to all plans. That's what I like to do. I'm like, I'm saying no, I'm having a day to myself. And for the whole day, I'm focusing on just resetting my life. And I think starting with your physical space is good because it's actually been shown that when your physical space is in disarray, it's a lot harder for your brain to focus. So it's like, how are we going to start to look at, okay, what do I want to accomplish in my career and my finances and my relationships and all these things if my physical space is a mess? So take the time to like declutter and clean through everything. And that includes not just like, I'm not talking mopping, dusting, da da da. I'm talking like that stack of bills that you have sitting on your counter, or the mail that you have not opened, or the things that you're delaying doing. Let's get those together.
Yeah, and I will say with the physical space aspect, you need a physical new source of inspiration. Like, yes, declutter your space. Yes, make sure that your office drawer is not like an absolute disaster so you can't even find what you need. But also, like, is your space inspiring to you? And I feel like this is especially prevalent if you work from home and you're trying to like be creative or strategic or get into deep work zones in your own space. Is your space inspiring to you? And maybe this could look like redoing your kind of like desk setup and making your desk cuter, or putting it closer to a window so that you have more natural light as you're working. Is your space optimized for really wanting to sit there and work for a lot of hours? So it doesn't just have to be decluttering, but it can also be like your physical source of inspiration. But then also on the flip side of that, organizing digitally, I think is so important too, because that's what's really going to make a difference for what tasks you get done in a day. Like, are you making it easier on yourself to do the things that you need to do? And for me, in Q4, this looked like getting a new planner. Honestly, I think a lot of people wait until the new year to like start fresh with a new planner and a new budget template and a new like all of the things. But a lot of planners come out in September because kids are going back to school. And I literally went to Target and I bought like a $20 physical planner. I haven't used a physical planner in a really long time, but I just wanted a new source of inspiration to have like a really cute planner sitting on my desk as I'm working and like write my little goals in there. And it actually has been making me so productive.
I think also too on the digital cleanup kind of side of things, I often think about where I might be making my life harder for myself than it actually needs to be by simply being a little bit less organized. So for example, I have like pretty much zero organization in the way that I organize B-roll footage, which B-roll is just like if you're watching a vlog and there's little clips of me at the store or cleaning or those types of things, that's what B-roll is. I have no way to organize my B-roll, like zero. And I've tried to implement a couple systems and it just like did not work. So I'm like, okay, how can I start to maybe organize that better so that when I am wanting to accomplish those career goals that I'm setting for myself in posting content more consistently, editing better, like whatever it may be, I actually have a system that is supporting that goal. And yeah, with your space, does it inspire you? Does it excite you? Are there parts of your space that you're like, the way I think of them is like open loops. Like, for example, my space is not fully done, like my apartment. I like more of a minimalist design. I don't like a bunch of things like lying around. But I've realized, well, I can't really have friends over and my family's coming to visit in October. I don't really have a place for them to sit in my living room because I have a two-seater couch and that's the only like place that they could sit. So I'm like, okay, I want to finish this space, but that's like an open loop in my head. And my space also isn't necessarily inspiring me because it feels undone. Okay, well, I'm going to close that open loop so that I'm not sitting here thinking about it the whole time, or just developing systems that allow you to feel better about your space and keep up with it more. I also will say too, when it comes to, and I kind of mentioned this already, but like the physical cleanup, the digital cleanup, and I call it like the adulting cleanup. I've mentioned before that I like to keep a list of lingering to-dos that are things that I just need to get to. And a lot of them are adulting things that I have put off for a long time. Literally, one of them, I went to the beach a couple months ago with my friends, and because there was multiple friends in the car, there was just so much sand that got into my car afterwards. And I have not vacuumed it. I took my like the mats out and like shook them out and stuff, but there's still sand everywhere. I just need to go to one of the little car vacuum things and vacuum it. I think I actually talked about this in a previous episode. So if you're listening, you're probably like, girl, you mentioned this vacuum situation months ago. I did, and I still haven't done it. That's something that like on a reset day, go and do it. Just get it off of your to-do list. Same thing, open the mail. that's been sitting on your counter or your entryway table that like you have not touched, like open it and get it all squared away. If you have, yeah, bills you need to pay or things that are just lingering, take care of those because it's very, I think of the way I think of it is like if my brain is in the center of a graphic, right? And everything that I need to think about is like a string that's like connected to my brain. And each of those strings is pulling, is like tugging on my brain. If you have the more things you have there, the more things that are physically tugging on your brain. And I think about how stressful and overwhelming that would be for my brain. Like I literally imagine the little organ being right there and everything like pulling off of it. The more you can minimize the things that are tugging on your brain, even those little tugs, it's going to be a lot easier to think about the big tugs with a lot more clarity.
Totally agree. It's taking up brain capacity, even if it's a little thing. If there's 10 little things that all probably take between like 10 and 30 minutes to get done, that's taking up a lot of brain capacity that you can't spend elsewhere. And I feel like this is a good transition into kind of our next section, which is to assess where you are now. And I think a lot of people are really excited about a new quarter or a new year. So they kind of start looking ahead without really taking the time to look at the previous quarter and be like, okay, what goals did I actually set for the last quarter? And did I make progress on them? Because for me, like we were prepping for this episode and I didn't assess where I was in Q3. And I had to go back to our literal Q3 episode outline and be like, okay, what goals did I set for myself and did I make progress on them? And I actually found that in one, that was a really big focus area for me. But then I set another goal for myself in Q3 that I really didn't focus on. And it was exactly that. In Q3, if you listen to our Q3 episode, my two big goals were wellness and organization. So this quarter, I have been living at my boyfriend's. I've been like prepping to move into my house. And I was like, okay, what can I focus on this quarter with the thought that I'm not in my own space? And wellness was a big one. And I really did focus on that. Got a new workout routine. I signed up for a solid core membership. There was a couple big things in there that I really took steps on in the wellness category. But then with organization, it was like, okay, I know I need to close on my home loan. I know I need to finalize my taxes from last year. I need to switch over my health insurance because I just moved states. I have a bunch of doctor's appointments that I'm behind on, like all of these adulting cleanup things that I literally have been procrastinating so much. And some of them I was forced to get done. I had to close on my home loan. But then other things definitely still got put to the wayside. And yeah, I need to focus on them now in Q4. So to really just spend some time being like, okay, what were the goals that I set for myself last quarter? And did I actually make progress in them?
Yeah, I know in the Q3 episode, one of the things I talked about was, which in the big question here, the first question to ask yourself is, which goals did you make meaningful progress on and why? Understanding the why too is really helpful to reflect on. So for example, similar to what you were saying, in the Q3 episode, I said I wanted to not work weekends at all and focus on other things outside of work, like being present when I am outside of work, because I've mentioned this before, but with my current health situation and being in and out of work a lot because of the pain just getting significantly worse over the last like 9 months or so, I feel like I have been thinking about work constantly because I've been behind on a lot of work things, but that's also not a way to live, to be thinking about work constantly. So I wanted to find more balance and adapt based on my health situation because I was trying to kind of operate in the way that I would when this was not an issue. It's funny because that I ended up taking Fridays off almost the whole quarter, and that has been a game changer just to give myself time to actually rest physically and give myself a mental break from thinking about work. I have still worked a little bit on weekends in the sense of I'll edit a video, or if I have like a burst of productivity or a really cool idea, I'll spend 2 hours executing on it because I think as an entrepreneur, like, yeah, you want to capitalize on the time that you have. But I also recognize in my situation, not every day is a really good day with my health. So if I have a good day and it happens to be a weekend and I have all the ideas, I'm going to use it. But I've found a lot more balance with work, which has been really helpful, and also learning to take one thing at a time. So that is a goal that I feel like I made meaningful progress on. And I feel like I was able to do that. The why is because I made it a priority. And I mean, that goal, like I would talk about it in therapy. I was telling my friends, as I'm trying to do this, I'm not working Fridays. And even one of my friends would say to me, I remember one day last week, I worked last Friday because I had a lot going on. And I was like, yeah, I worked today. And she was like, wait, she's like, but it's a Friday. You worked a Friday. And I was like, I did work a Friday. And now that I have other people that know to what I'm working on, I was able to hold myself accountable. But the second question to ask yourself in assessing where you are is which goals got completely abandoned and what derailed them. Like, and I want to preface this by saying it's okay to abandon goals sometimes. It's okay to say, like, maybe you get a few weeks into the quarter and you're like, you know what, actually, like, I don't know why I set that goal. I tend to do this with I'll set way too many goals, or I'll set goals without actually looking ahead, which is a tip when you're looking. So when I set my budget, for example, this is like connected but an aside. When I set my budget for the month, I'll pull up my calendar sometimes and I'll look at like what do I have on my calendar to see, okay, is it anybody's birthday this month? Are there any dinners or things that are already scheduled into my calendar that I want to make note of? Any trips, any events happening, any things that I plan to donate to, or, you know, oh, I'm due for a haircut, like whatever it may be. And then that way your budget can reflect. And I think it's good to do that with your goals too. So when you're looking at your goals for, you're setting your goals for Q4, literally pulling up your calendar and being like, okay, wait a second, you know what? I have 2 vacations. It's so and so's wedding. And so I know, and I'm in the wedding party, so I got to be there for 3 days. Or, you know, well, I'm taking a week off for the holidays. Okay, so maybe I don't try to set 50 million goals that I know are probably going to be really difficult to execute on, given the fact that I'm traveling or busy for 6 weeks of the next 12 weeks, and be realistic with it. So it's okay to abandon goals sometimes. All that to say, it doesn't mean you just gave up. Wait, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I agree on the setting too many goals aspect. If you in Q3 were like, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z in like all of these different areas of my life, and then you got to the end and you're like, oh wait, I actually didn't make progress in anything. I feel like that's a really good reflection too going into Q4, because the point of assessing where you are right now is being like, okay, did I make progress? And if not, why didn't I make progress? And why do I feel like I'm exactly where I was at the beginning of Q3, which is like what we're trying to avoid, right? You want to feel like you make progress every quarter of your life. A quarter is 3 months. So if you tried to set goals in every single domain, maybe look at that and say, okay, in Q4, they can't all be priorities. And I feel like that's one good last piece for this, like assessing where you are and assessing the previous quarter, is to look at every single domain of your life in Q3, even if they weren't necessarily a goal, and being like, okay, where am I at? Where did this fall in a spectrum of like 1 to 10 for the last month, so that going into Q4, I can make an informed decision on which domain of my life I'm actually going to set a goal for in the next quarter.
I think it's like, which, and I think it was it Q2 maybe that I did the 12-week year, and I would sit down every week and I would track my progress on certain goals. And I had a couple of focus areas that I chose. And I think that's kind of the whole point of looking at the different domains of your life, which we'll talk about in a bit when we talk about deciding where you want to go and your plan for Q4. We always say diluted focus creates diluted results. I think that was a quote you may have read in a book or a podcast or something, but it's like you do kind of have to choose a few focus areas. And I think when you do try to take on too much, you can end up abandoning certain things because it's too much. I know I completely abandoned the goal of like furnishing my apartment more and putting finishing touches on. And now that's like part of my Q4. Okay, now I need to really do this. But I only have 7 months left in my lease. So now I'm kind of like, all right, well, now it seems kind of silly to buy things to furnish my place. So I'm just being intentional with what I spend it on. But it just got completely abandoned in Q3. It just was not a priority amidst all of the other health and financial things that were happening. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I failed Q3 or failed that goal. It's just, it didn't become a priority. And I also think too, it's good to think about where, when you're looking back, being like, okay, if a goal, if something didn't work out and I'm in the same position that I was in 3 months ago, were these moves that I made, were they intentional shifts in my focus, or did I just like lose focus entirely because I fell off? And both of those things are solvable. And you don't have to give meaning or negative meaning to either of those things. If you made an intentional shift in your focus, you were like, for example, with my furnishing apartment, this is not a priority. Or some of my career decisions, my therapist and I agreed. She was like, girl, you have bigger fish to fry at this moment in time. She's like, why don't you not make any decisions until after you have endo surgery? Because there's just too much going on. And I was like, you know what? That's actually a great idea. A very intentional shift in my focus. But if there are areas where you just completely fell off, for example, one goal that I said in the Q3 reset episode was to focus on strength training and movement. I was like, I really want to get stronger. That did not last long. It was intentional of why it didn't last long, because my health got worse and now I have like arthritis symptoms. So like strength training hurts, but it's something that I completely fell off on. And I don't have to give that negative meaning, but it's solvable. So now, okay, going into Q4, maybe the goal is still to get stronger. How can I do that in a way that actually feels good and is something I'm going to stick to? If you're someone who, like, maybe in Q3, that was your goal too, if I want to work out every day, maybe you realize that does not work for you. You don't like that. Or maybe working out in the morning does not work for you. What was the why behind why it didn't work? And how can you develop some sort of framework or structure or routine in Q4 that actually helps you follow through with that goal? And I will say, before you go into the next section, the last thing I'll say here is, I think we've talked about this before. I'm not a numbers based goal person. I'm not well, I want to work out 5 times a week. I want to, whatever with numbers, because I find that sometimes I personally end up so focused on the number that if I don't hit that exact number, I start to internalize this idea that I've failed and then I fall off a lot faster. So instead, I focus on just showing up for that thing. And this concept is something that comes from the book Atomic Habits. He talks about like the best way to build a habit is to do it for like 2 minutes every day or something. So that's literally what I focus on. I'm like, okay, my goal is to, instead of work out 5 times a week, it's to be more active or attend more workout classes. And then how can I make that a priority in my life? Okay, well, I'm going to take a midday walk today, and tomorrow maybe I walk at my walking pad on my desk, or maybe I stretch, or maybe I whatever. It's just focusing on showing up for that goal in some way, in some capacity. And I've talked about this with my reading habit, because that was a goal I set 2 years ago. I've read every single day for the last like 2 or 2.5 years without fail. But the reason why I've done that is because some days I literally would read a paragraph. If I got home from a late flight or something, it's 3 in the morning, I'm going to read before I go to bed, because I told myself I'm going to do it every single day. I'm not reading for 5 hours. I'm sitting there and I'm reading a paragraph and I'm going to bed. But then other nights I am reading for an hour. So focusing on just showing up for your goal is what's going to get you there faster.
I love the 2 minute tip. I remember reading that in Atomic Habits like way back when in college. I read that book. And this is something that I've been focused on too, because since wellness was a big priority in Q3, I was like, okay, one thing that I really need to work on is my cardiovascular health. Like, I walk on the treadmill. I'm like an incline walk on the treadmill girl. I just love to like walk and be on my phone or listen to a podcast. But other than that, I don't do any high impact cardio at all. And I'm like, okay, my health, my heart can use some help. So I literally was like, I'm going to start getting on the Stairmaster. And I said the same thing. I was like, okay, 2 minutes. And when you get onto the Stairmaster, you end up doing longer than 2 minutes, but just tell yourself like you could do anything for 2 minutes, whether it be read a book or get on the Stairmaster or whatever it is you want to do, you could do it for 2 minutes. So I love that tip too. And the next piece of this is deciding where you want to go and keeping all of these things in mind with like, be realistic about what you can realistically accomplish in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, right? A quarter is 3 months long. You are not going to be able to attend 10 social outings and start X new habits and also start a business and also like clean your whole space and organize your whole space. Like, you're not going to be able to. And if you try to set all of these goals in all of these different domains of your life, you're literally going to make zero progress. And I feel like this is something that I've really been thinking about going into Q4, because Q4 is a really big time for business owners, because you're obviously trying to finish out the year, but then you're trying to prep for next year. And you're also trying to be really strategic about what your offerings are for next year. And I know in Grace and I's shoes, we sell templates, and those templates, like the end of year and beginning of year, are really big sales times. So you always try to reinvent your products in Q4. So I know naturally business is going to be a really big priority for me going into Q4. However, on October 1st, I'm moving into my house and I need to furnish my house, I need to decorate it, I need to put all of my furniture together, and I'm a homeowner for the first time. So naturally that comes with a really big priority. So I'm kind of like trying to find this balance of like, what are my goals for Q4? What do I realistically want to assign myself to accomplish and focus on, knowing that I'm super productive business wise in Q4, but I'm also moving and I'm trying to balance those personal goals as well.
I want to give you guys some ideas of what those goals could be or what your priorities could be. And maybe you already have some in your head, but I think these are all pretty like realistic for the different domains of life. So maybe in your career, it's like, okay, what do you want to accomplish or feel by the end of the year? I also want to mention that it doesn't have to be I want to win this award, make this much money, do this specific thing. It can be how do I want to feel about this at the end of the year? For example, it could be maybe you're feeling uncertain in a relationship that you're in right now and you're like, I want to just end the year feeling certain. Whether that's I stay with this person, I don't, or whether we agree on this issue or we don't, I just want to end the year feeling certain. Or I feel unsure about whether I want to save for a house or whether I want to move into a house or whether I want to stay in this apartment or not. Maybe your goal is just, I want to end the year feeling peace around those decisions or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be that you are always accomplishing a thing, but yeah, what do you want to accomplish or feel by the end of the year? Imagine in the career section, imagine your year end performance review happening and what do you want to hear in that year end performance review, even if that performance review is with yourself. Like if I sit down at the end of December and I say, okay, I'm going to review my performance as a business owner for the last 3 months, what do I want to be able to say? Yeah, like I did that really well. And using that as kind of your North Star. But other ideas might just be expand your network, connect with more people in your industry. I want to, have 5 conversations with people from LinkedIn or something. Maybe it's reading a newsletter in your industry each week or improving in a specific skill area. Like I want to learn this new skill or take a free 1 hour course or something. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. On your finances, it could be what income goals you might have. Like where do you want to end the year? If you have a side hustle, maybe you want to make some extra or something. How do you want to handle spending around the holidays? Like, okay, maybe my goal this year is last year I did not budget for the holidays at all or something. And now this year I really want to prep for that. So I'm spending the next 2.5 months preparing for that in relationships and social connections. And these are the different, they're not all 8 domains of life here, but the 8 domains of life that we mentioned here, these are some of them. That's why I'm breaking this up this way. And you can find like some sort of life audit worksheet and like use it to really map everything out if you want to put pen to paper on these. But when it comes to relationships and social connections, maybe your goals are to deepen certain relationships, make it a priority to see a friend at least twice a week, or maybe you want to make new friends. So you're downloading Bumble BFF and trying to make at least 2 new connections this quarter. Maybe for health and wellness, you want to make time for exercise, create a new workout routine, or be consistent at a supplement or vitamin that you're supposed to take, build the habit of meditating, take on the 50 plant source challenge. We had a dietitian on the podcast who has been the dietitian for both of us. We both worked with her and she's Erin's friend, Gabrielle. It's a great episode, but I think that's like a very tactical thing you could implement for the health and wellness. Basically, it's just to eat 50 different plant sources per week. But and maybe for your home and environment, you want to create a space that supports your routines, love your space more. You want to decorate it. Like it doesn't have to, again, it doesn't have to be a super I want to end the year or I want to make 30K in Q4 or I want to have a boyfriend by the end of the year or like whatever it might be. It can be some more simple things. And I hope those examples kind of illustrate that.
I love that so much. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day with the founder of the app called Activations. Have you heard of that app, Grace?
Yes, a friend recommended it to me actually back in January, but I haven't tried it.
It's so good. I feel like you would love it. I've recently started listening to it and I feel like it has helped me get better at my wellness goal because I was feeling really uninspired in the gym and I downloaded this app and it's basically kind of like a meditation app, but basically you are listening to these activations at different points in your day. So there's like a couple different workout ones and there's ones to listen to while you're getting ready. There's ones to listen to when you're on a walk, just like different points in your day. And it's basically just like spitting affirmations into your brain with like really, really cool like music and stuff to get you pumped up. But it's been making such a difference in my workout. Like I've actually been loving the app and I've been using it every single day. But when I was listening to the podcast with the founder of that app, she was talking about the same thing of journaling about how you want to feel if you accomplish your goal. So instead of making a goal that's like, yeah, I want to make 30K in my business, go journal for a bit about how you want to feel at the end of the year. What are those emotions that you want to feel day to day? Do you want to feel, for me, I know I want to feel like calm and like very in control of my day. I feel like there has been a lot of points in my adult life where I've had the feeling of ending the day being like, where did my day go? Like it just went by so fast. But you know, when you're in a season of life where you're like, I have all the time in the world to do every single thing that I want to do in life, like that's how I want to end the year feeling. And that means obviously setting goals around like time management and being disciplined about the tasks that I have to do. Like those are the tactical things to make me feel that way, but really spending time to think about like what would a January 1st version of you look like if you had everything that you want out of life, and then how can we work backwards and set the goals accordingly.
hmm I think that's the whole kind of goes into the whole premise of the 1 year experiment that I did, which on that episode, so many of y'all, we did the original episode and reposted it. And so many of y'all said that the audio was so bad on the second one, which is so weird because it sounds totally fine on like our end. But if you go back to the original time we posted it, it might be a little bit better if you're like a new listener and this is the first time that you're hearing about the 1 year experiment. But the idea is to think, what would the version of me who already has this thing, how would she feel? How would she act? How would she think? So, okay, if the version of me who already has the career that I want or the financial situation that I want, how would she think about these things? How would she act? What would she be working on? And how can you back yourself from that? So, okay, if my dream career is owning a business that makes multiple millions of dollars a year, okay, how can I back that? What do I need to do today to help me get to that thing and move in that direction? And I think that's a good way to think about it, even in the shorter term of, okay, I start 2026 as the happiest, healthiest, hottest, and richest version of me yet. What do I need to do to get myself from where I am now to there? And again, you're not going to reinvent your entire life in 3 months, but like, how can I get myself closer to starting the year on the best foot possible?
Yeah, in Q4, you can really take this season to build momentum and start making progress, because I feel like a lot of times when we go into Q4, really just looking ahead at Q1 and being like, okay, in Q1, I'll set all these goals and like make all this progress. It is so hard to make progress before you have momentum. Like if you want to start the goal of, or if you want to start the habit of working out, right? Like that's your goal, to be super fit, to be like in the gym every day. It's going to suck at the beginning until you start like getting that momentum. There's not going to be a workout that you love doing from day one, because at day one, it's going to be really hard. You have to start getting yourself like in that habit and start building that momentum so that in Q1, you could be like, okay, now what's my workout routine goal? Because I already have this momentum, because I've been slowly starting to go to the gym in Q4 and slowly starting to build those habits. So I think Q4 is a really good time to set yourself up, like make a lot of progress to set yourself up to really hit it hard in Q1. If you're still no, I'm a Q1 girl, I'm a New Year's girl, like I set all my goals in the New Year's, Q4 can be a really good time to set yourself up for that.
I also think too, in terms of the Q4 reset itself, and like I think that's why it's really helpful to start with some of the quote unquote lower hanging fruit of, okay, I'm gonna clean up my space a little bit, declutter digitally, I'm gonna take care of some of these lingering tasks, get the things out of my headspace so I can focus, because those, I personally find, and I do this on a day-to-day basis with how I organize my tasks for the day, I knock out the low-hanging fruit, like posting a client's TikTok video or something that takes me 5 to 10 minutes, because those small tasks help me build momentum that then get me into my focus work periods where I like block out a couple of hours and I'm like in deep work. And I think that same principle applies for other aspects of life. Okay, if I knock out some of these low hanging fruit, it starts to get me to build momentum. And one thing too, I wanted to mention that I realized I forgot to at the beginning. If you are deciding to take a day to like do all of this, get on like a Zoom call with a friend of yours that also wants to do the same thing, or maybe they just have another goal they're working on. Literally put yourself on mute, and they call it body doubling, like working alongside somebody else or just co-working in general. My friend and I did this one day, and we have been trying to find another time to do it again because it was so helpful. But she was working on her business, and then I was literally cleaning my apartment. And then once I finished cleaning my apartment, I was doing some work stuff. And like it made such a difference having somebody there. Like I can lock in myself, but like the amount of time I was able to work for and how focused I was really great. And then if there was a moment where one of us was like stuck on something, like you can unmute and ask a question, but you're there with the purpose of focusing. And I think that that also helps you show up and commit to it. If you're like, okay, well, I have to meet my friend Maggie, was who I did it with. Like, oh, okay, well, I have to meet Maggie at noon on Zoom. So I actually do need to like pull it together and figure out what I want to do. And carve out the time for it, because you're promising somebody else you're going to be there to do it. But one of the last things we want to share in this episode is just kind of like clear cut creating your Q4 action plan and just kind of like boom, 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 giving you the steps. Because with these types of episodes, we want to give you all the value and then be like, okay, now go do, go do the thing, not just listen, but actually go implement. So, number one is choose 2 to 3 focus areas for Q4. What are you actually going to work on? Career, finances, health, relationships, wellness, whatever it might be. Choose a couple of those things and really think about the actual reality of Q4 again with the seasonality and the things that are going on. Look at your calendar. Are you traveling a lot for the holidays? Do you have weddings or events or things like that are going to be pulling you in different directions, or travel that you're like, okay, I need to be realistic about, maybe I don't try to develop a crazy new workout routine when I'm traveling half of Q4. Break down those goals into targets. You can do it weekly, monthly, whatever, if I ended Q4, I want to be able to look back and say I accomplished these things. What do I need to do to actually get there? And it can be smaller too. It can be, okay, well, I do want to, you know, take better care of my space. So I'm going to implement a cleaning routine. I'm going to hang it on my fridge and I'm going to check off each day when I've done that cleaning routine or whatever it may be. You don't have to necessarily sit down and do a whole performance review on a weekly basis, but then check in with yourself on some sort of cadence to be like, okay, am I making progress? And be very real and honest with yourself. It can even be when you're journaling. We talk about journaling. It can be that when you're journaling, you take time to reflect, like, did I show up for myself today and the goals that I set? Yes or no? And nobody has to see what's in there. No one has to know whether you said yes or no in that journal. But okay, if my goals were to do this, organize my space better and workout or whatever, did I actually do those things? Yes or no? And using those as little checkpoints with yourself to track your progress.
I love that. I love these episodes because, like we said, we want to keep these like a little bit shorter and very like action oriented. Like, here's some inspiration. Now go take action, and then check back in with yourself consistently throughout the quarter to make sure that you're making progress towards your goals. So let us know in Spotify if you guys like these reset episodes. You seem to. These are always our best performing episodes by far. You guys seem to love them. I feel like anything like reset or routine oriented and goal oriented always performs super well. You guys seem to love them. So let us know in Spotify what else you want to hear from us in terms of these little reset type of episodes. If there's any like specific area of your life you want us to focus on in a future episode, leave all of your other episode ideas and questions in Spotify, because we always pull from Spotify for our Q&A episodes and our episode ideas in general. That's where we like to pull from. But with that, thank you for tuning into the podcast, and until next week.